And now Paolo's like this phenom, and everyone from Seattle's looking up to him. And DeJounte is jealous and wants the people from Seattle to look up to him as like their basketball hero. And so even though in their earlier days DeJounte was somewhat of a mentor to Paolo, now he's sort of become jealous as like Paolo's sort of surpassing him in popularity. What do you think?
Okay, everybody, welcome back to the Sports Podcast, episode number 5, going strong here. Today's episode, we don't have anything particular. We're just here chatting about, random stuff going on in the NBA before the preseason does start. I like your move, Sam. So, Sam, you wanna introduce us into our first topic?
Our first topic is something that a lot of people have been seeing, a lot of people have been talking about, something that isn't necessarily about professional play, but we're talking about, well, it is professional, pro-am. And that would be the Paolo versus DeJounte Murray beef. So to preface this a little bit, people are wondering, why is DeJounte going so hard at Paolo before we actually get into the details? And well, actually, let's just go into the nitty gritty. So basically, DeJounte is just like, they're playing in Seattle in a pro-am game, and DeJounte is just like, he's been a menace all these pro games. He's like bouncing the ball off the head of like 9 to 5 workers, just like dunking all over people who like really didn't do anything to deserve it. And then he's just like doing Paolo dirty for no reason, bro. Like he had this one move where he pretended to pass it behind Paolo, but then just put the ball behind his back and then threw it off his face and then threw the ball at him and started talking shit. And he was basically saying like, "Oh, all these people are here to see Paolo. Well, they're going to see me." And so what I think is happening is that Paolo's from Seattle, right? Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so is DeJounte. And now Paolo's like this phenom, and everyone from Seattle's looking up to him. And DeJounte is jealous and wants the people from Seattle to look up to him as like their basketball hero. And so even though in their earlier days DeJounte was somewhat of a mentor to Paolo, now he's sort of become jealous as like Paolo's sort of surpassing him in popularity. What do you think about all this?
Okay, it's funny because he unfollowed Paolo on Twitter, and then he posted this very sus comment on his Instagram story, and he was like, "I'll burn your back out, little bro," and he added Paolo, which is kind of funny to me because in our terms when we say that, that's actually like hella sus. So that's actually pretty funny, but
Oh my god.
I don't know when DeJounte Murray said Paolo was being ungrateful that he was the first overall pick. I think Paolo was very humble when he got picked first overall because when we're looking at drafts and like who we were planning on going number 1, a lot of people had Paolo going 2 or 3. They had like Chet and Jabari Smith
Right.
going 1 and 2. Then
So
they
it wasn't
didn't have
guaranteed
Paolo going 1. Like,
and just for reference, DeJounte went like number 27. So maybe there's a bit of jealousy there as well.
yeah, but I got one person that's not been talked enough. I got to give a huge shout out to Coach Pop of the San Antonio Spurs, Greg Popovich. How are you able to control a menace like DeJounte Murray for so long?
I know, bro.
Like
this dude is like the new Patrick Beverley, bro.
Yeah, like
but better.
Everybody in the NBA media knows the Spurs culture is a very down to earth type culture. Pop keeps them in check. Right. There's no drama. You see Tim Duncan, Manu, Tony Parker, Kawhi when they played for the Spurs. There was not much drama involved with the Spurs. And DeJounte goes from San Antonio to Atlanta, and bro goes haywire. I won't say haywire, but bro goes crazy.
I mean, he was even fiery on the Spurs. There were a few times where he was like snapping at Pop and talked back to him, but for the most part, he was definitely in check. But I mean, DeJounte is definitely known to be a very fierce, fiery competitor, almost sort of like Patrick Beverley, which, I mean, I think some people are seeing that's sort of a red flag, especially after the way he wasn't able to control his own ego in this pro-am. But honestly, I think he is just a pro-am. Like, I don't know if that necessarily means he will be so unprofessional at that level in the NBA. But honestly, I'm okay with this fiery competitiveness, especially being added to the Hawks, because right now the Hawks are sort of on the offensive end, it's definitely fiery. People get very hyped. But on the defensive end, we could definitely use like nitty gritty, kind of crazy, like DeJounte to sort of hype up our defense and stuff because we do have some like pretty good defensive players that could be doing better, especially with the defensive leader. Like, so I think as long as the superstar ego together, I think his crazy off the rails competitiveness can actually be a good thing for the team. But who knows when it will become too much and he begins arguing with people like Trey Young or Nate McMillan. I don't know. What do you think?
I think look, DeJounte is a great player, you know. Even on the Spurs, he was great. I think he's a great player. He has so much talent to him, but
Mhm.
sometimes that attitude has to be in check on the court and off the court. So I like the fiery attitude from him, but if he keeps this up, who knows what the consequences to his actions are later in the season, you know?
Right,
So I
right,
guess it's just a wait and see thing. The drama was a bit
right.
funny, but I feel like they made up in that pro-am game with LeBron and Jason Tatum when that got shut down
Mhm.
early. Paolo was going in for a layup. He slipped and fell, and DeJounte Murray helped him up and patted him on the back. So I feel like the beef is squashed, but I will be watching out for the Hawks and Magic game when the Hawks are trying to fight for a playing position and the Magic are trying to fight for their 7th win of the season. So we'll wait and see.
Oh my god. Yeah, I agree. And then what do you think? Who do you think was going to have more? Who do you think will see more success next season, Paolo or Dejounte?
I think it's debatable. It's up there, but I think DeJounte. I mean, he has more experience in the league. He finally has a little bit of a better talent around him to play with, and I think he will excel.
Yeah,
But based on how the Heat is going and the competition they have in the East, the Hawks aren't going to make it far. But I'm excited to see the
yeah.
Magic and the Hawks matchup when the Magic are going for their 5th win of the season and the Hawks are trying to make it to the play-in. I'm waiting for that matchup.
Bro, you were talking mad. You were talking mad trash right now. Yeah, I think you're definitely going to see Paolo be more of a star in terms of like his points he's scoring. But I think there's definitely a higher chance we'll be able to see Dejounte compete. I think Dejounte will definitely be looking at like some defensive accolades, maybe. Like he'll definitely be more of like a role player star.
Mm-hmm.
Like sort of like Marcus Smart or something, maybe like a glorified Marcus Smart. And I think you'll also there's definitely a higher chance you'll see Dejounte have success in the postseason than Paolo. It's unlikely the Magic will make the playoffs. So yeah. So I think different types of success, but I think you're definitely going to see Paolo have more power status, even if he's on a worse team, just because he'll be that player that they need to feed the ball. Okay. What next topic, Shrieker? Hit us with one.
So I have two. I'll go with number one. Earlier today, KD decided to stay with the Nets and running back with Kyrie. So the Brooklyn has a big three now with Ben Simmons, Kyrie, and KD. So that's their big three. So we said the Nets were gonna make the play in our very first episode. But then we were uncertain if KD and Kyrie were gonna stay on the team. But now since they're running it back, I want to reevaluate our decision and see how far can the Nets get if saying both all three Simmons, Kyrie, and KD can stay healthy in the season. How far can this Nets team realistically go?
Playing. That's my prediction, bro. Like Kevin Durant, yes, he's great, but I just don't see these problems with Ben Simmons and Kyrie magically going away. Say they do make it on the court, these players have like hardly ever played together, and they're all pretty ball dominant. I mean, Ben Simmons can be a great passer, but then you have like Kyrie and KD. Like I don't know, like, and even if they do work out, like they still lost to the Bucks, and I could see that happening again, especially as Giannis has gotten better and KD and Kyrie are getting older. So like I don't know, bro. I don't know if it's gonna work. You'd have to, I think, for this team to be good, you need to see a significant leap from Ben Simmons if he actually does play. And then I don't think Kyrie's problems are just magically vanishing. And I honestly think Kyrie's a little overrated even when he is playing. I think people are putting him as like easily like a top 5 point guard in the league, which yes, you could put him as top 5. Some people put him top 3. I'm like, that's crazy. So
Mhm.
yes, he is talented, but he's not aiding his teammates around him the way the point guard like Chris Paul might, make the whole team better the way he does with the Suns. So I don't know. I don't see this team doing very well. That's my hot take. What about you?
My take is the Nets don't have a big man. They don't have a big man. And I
Clarkson.
know him, but how is he going to guard Embiid? How is he going to guard the Greek Freak? How is he going to guard all these other big men in the East? He's
And even
good.
Kevin Durant is not a great defender. Like he's fine, but he's not great.
Like we talked in the last podcast, he's an underrated defender, but he's nowhere near the top defenders in the league. They don't
Right.
have a centerable big man that they can use like Rob Williams, like Giannis, like Joel Embiid, where they can use on the pick and roll and they can use on the defensive end and the rim protection. And I think that's what holds them back a little bit. So I like where you say
Right.
playing,
I mean, you
and
saw they
I'm a
got swept
going.
by the Celtics even when Kyrie. And you saw they got swept by the Celtics even with Kyrie and KD in. So like, I don't think Ben Simmons is really changing that. Maybe it won't be a sweep. But I don't think he's changing that. And the Celtics are only getting better. So like, this is just like around the same level of Nets team that has been a disappointment, while all the other teams are getting better. So for me, honestly, trade Kyrie because you need to put someone. I don't think like you have 2 point guards right now, and Kyrie's such a problem. So I would try to trade him and get like some solid role play. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And my next topic, recent NBA news. The word superstar has been thrown around in this league, you know? And so today I want to talk about
Mm.
what defines a superstar in today's league and what players are under that superstar term. And us as NBA fans, NBA media, NBA players themselves, what is the consensus? What is the terms that have to be used? Do we have a general consensus to define a superstar?
Okay, so here's what I think. We should each define what we think a superstar is, and then we can go through some players currently and throughout history and say, do we think that's a superstar? So for me, a superstar is a player who is dominant, top 10 within the league, you know, but also has a factor to do with popularity and with media. And so for me, that's someone that even people who don't follow basketball will know that name. Even people who know nothing about basketball will know that name. So what is a superstar for you? Like a
I
superstar
think
for me is it's a high status. There are a lot of people who are called superstars who I think are just like really good all stars, like really good all stars, top of the league guys. But are they a superstar? That's like celebrity status. What do you think?
yeah, top 10 player in the league for sure. Somebody who has a mass amount of following on their socials like Instagram, Twitter, and somebody who's well known. So basically what you said, I'm just rewording it. I agree with what you define as a superstar. I agree.
Okay, so then that being said, LeBron James, superstar,
Yes, of course.
obviously. So that's like a standard. We're
Obviously.
set. Let's go a little lower than that.
Hmm.
Let's say, would you say someone like, let's go into history a little bit. Would you say Isaiah Thomas Sr. was a superstar?
No.
No. See, for me, he was a very great player, but not nobody knows Isaiah Thomas
He
who's not
was
a
a great
basketball
player
fan,
on that
really.
'04 Pistons team. He was definitely a great player,
No, not oh
but
04. You're
'04,
thinking of a
not
different
in the
in the
'04
80s.
was the wrong
80s.
'80s. There we go. He was definitely a great player in the '80s team, but I don't think he's a superstar. No, that's a no for me.
Okay. What about Giannis?
Yes, he's a top tier player in the league. He's a top 10 player in their league. He has a mass following on socials, Instagram and Twitter, and I think he lacks a little bit of like worldwide known.
Right.
But in his hometown in Greece and in the EuroLeague basketball, he's well known as one of the best. So I say yes, he's a superstar.
I say for me, it's fringe because he's had that massive success, but he only does have that one championship. I think if he were to make a push for another and really just like cement himself as this player that everyone knows, he would be an automatic superstar, like, in there with LeBron and them. But for me, it's like, it's the same thing. Like, he is not as well known as the past, like, obviously Kobe Bryant, Shaq, those types of players. Even if he is really that, he still has a bit of time to cement himself as like definitely a superstar versus like this because he is the best player in the world. He just needs to continue to be the best player in the world. Him to be someone that's a household name. You know what I'm saying? What about Jokic?
No, I think he's
Jokic to
just
me,
there.
Jokic to me is a
No.
back-to-back MVP, one of the best players in the league, but he's not. he hasn't had a bunch of success, so he's not that well known to people outside of NBA fandom. So yeah, I wouldn't say he's a superstar.
Okay.
Even if he is worthy of that, he's worthy to be a superstar, but he needs to be more success. He needs to have like that dominance that Giannis has for people to really like for him to be a household name. What about
Steph
Luca?
Curry. Steph Curry. What
Curry?
about Steph?
Yes, everyone knows Curry. Come on, bro. That's yeah. Curry isn't a superstar. What
What about
about
Kevin Durant?
Luca?
We'll go
Luca.
Luca, but what about Kevin?
See, this one's tough. Again, he's French. I think you can make the argument, but I just think that he is great. Obviously, he's a great player, and he's a top 20 player all time, probably, right? But he's not really as well known as someone like Steph Curry because Steph Curry is just so iconic as this amazing shooter and as this winner. And Kevin Durant isn't as known as much as like a winner, you know? And he's never really been like solidly the best player in the league or dominated the league for a long time. So I think you could argue it because he is such a famous player, but he's definitely not at the level that Curry is. And honestly, I think Giannis has surpassed him at this point. So I would say he's like on the border and not quite. I don't know. It's hard to define. See, the term superstar
Okay.
is hard to define. So I would say no superstar Kevin Durant.
Okay.
What
You
about
said
you?
Luca, and I think yes, Luca is a superstar. For me, yes.
I don't think Luke. For me, Luca is not a superstar yet. He definitely will be. I bet on that. I bet my life on that. Luca will be a superstar. He will be Loki. He could just be a top 5 player all the time. I don't think that's crazy to say. He has so much potential. It's insane.
Mm-hmm. He needs help, as in like talent around him, but I can see it. I can see it.
I mean, he's
So,
like sort of in a situation LeBron was in his early days, where he was
mm-hmm.
trying to just carry this cast team that like all the other players on that team had who, and then he went to Miami, of course. Then he was able to cement his status as not only this amazing player, but as a winner and as a household name. So I think
Okay.
that that's something similar for Luca, except I don't know if he'll have to leave the Mavs. I think the Mavs can get him help.
Okay. So, just as a final remarks, we say a superstar is someone who is top 10 in the league, who is well known, who has social media presence, and what was the last one?
For me, like a lot of this has come down to like winning championships,
Accolades, basically.
rings, chips.
Yes. So four things for us that determine the superstar. Top 10, is he a top 10 player in the league? Yes or no? How is his player resume showing? His accolades, his presence known around the world, not just in the NBA, but in mass media, and his social media. How relevant is he? So these four things for us define a superstar in this league. And I think, could we say there's 6 to 7 solid guys who are a superstar in today's game? At least
No,
six.
I would say like 4.
Who's your four?
LeBron, Curry, borderline Giannis. That's kind of where I draw the line. Maybe Kevin Durant and then Luca in like a year or two. Yeah,
Yeah, I
Luca
say
and some time.
Steph. I say Braun for sure. I say Giannis is one. I say Luca's one. I would, on the fringe, would be Jokic, KD,
I don't think
and
Jokic is on the fringe. He just doesn't have the popularity, and he just hasn't been dominant for long enough. He hasn't won.
mm-hmm. And I say KD would be on the fringe too. So I think I have like five guys who I can argue are superstar in today's game.
Right.
Those are my topics. Now it's time for Sam's.
All right. So for me, let's talk about LeBron staying in the Lakers. Like he got paid 97 million for 2 years. That's a lot. That's a ton for someone who's like going to be 38 next season. I don't know. What do you think? Was this a surprising move to you?
Honestly, no, no.
Yeah.
I think he wants to stay with the Lakers. I honestly say no. I think this move was expected for me by LeBron. Um,
Hmm.
but what I am surprised about is how they're going to move forward now, because you have all these old players on your team. How are you going to
Hmm.
change? How are you going to change the way they played last season? You got a new coach who was an assistant coach with the Bucks when they won the championship, but now he's on his own. So, I wasn't surprised
They're
with this
definitely going to
move.
win now.
but they're
They're in
definitely
win
in a
now.
win now mode. Hmm.
For me, I think a lot of it is that okay, the Lakers situation, it's but it's not as bad as people say it is. Realistically, AD could be healthy. Realistically, Westbrook could adjust to be able to play next to LeBron better. And if that's the case, I'd have a real shot at, making even like a deep playoff run. Are they contenders? I mean, who knows? Depending on how he is and how good LeBron is next season. I think LeBron will be good. But yeah, I think they're definitely in win now mode. And then the other thing that makes it less surprising, I think LeBron's family's really settled into LA, and he's someone who's like a big family man. I don't think he would do that to his family to have them like try to move again and like go back to Cleveland. What people were saying, I don't. That's overdone. He's already done that. He doesn't need to do it again. Like this surprised me, and I think it makes sense for him.
Hmm. Hmm. Okay. Yeah, I agree.
All right, my next one. So I'm gonna give you a player, and you tell me if you think they're just overrated or underrated. Okay,
Okay.
start with a good
Okay,
one.
let's go.
Jason Tatum. Jason Tatum.
Is he a top 10 player? Arguably. Had a great run.
Just
Um,
overrated or underrated?
is it properly rated an option?
Sure, you can say properly rated.
I think he's a little bit overrated.
He's a bit
Yeah.
overrated to me too.
Yep.
I think
Mhm.
people are jumping on his genitalia a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, I
Stop
think
writing.
he's a fringe top 10 player, and people are trying to put him at top five. Like, calm down. He has a lot to prove. Okay, Jalen Brown.
Properly rated. Properly rated.
I think
He's a top.
properly rated.
Yeah. He's a top
He
10
was
shooting
he
guard.
was underrated, but I think now that he's really performed in the finals and Tatum didn't, people are recognizing that he's good.
He's
Okay,
top 10
Booker.
in the shooting guard position for sure in
Oh,
today's. Yeah.
top five probably. Yeah, Booker.
Overrated. I say overrated.
Overrated, bro. He's like
Yeah.
glorified Clay Thompson, in my opinion. He gets to his spots well, and he's much more athletic than Clay Thompson. But like, what is that team doing
Yeah.
without Chris Paul? Chris Paul is the most
Yeah.
important player on that team. Okay, because he's the one that facilitates all that. They're not doing shit without Chris Paul. Okay. All right. So Devin Booker overrated. DeMar
Properly rated. He had a
overrated.
really great stretch towards the end of the season, especially in March and April. He's properly rated. Definitely a top 10 small forward in today's game, in today's league.
I
So
think he's a
yeah,
bit overrated by Bulls fans. I really don't think he's like that guy who's going to lead you places because he doesn't really have defense and he doesn't have a 3-point shot.
yeah,
So
yeah,
they're going to
yeah.
need someone else there. Like
He
DeMar,
lives in the
DeMar is
mid
a little
range.
overrated to me.
He
Right,
lives
which
and
is like
sleeps
the
in the
least
mid range.
efficient shot in today's game. So to me, that's a bit overrated. Okay, what about Zion?
I think underrated. People are underrating Zion because he hasn't played. He is the only player in NBA history to average over 25 points on 60% shooting. The only player in the NBA to
To me,
ever do
that's
that.
also underrated. And he was kind of on minute restrictions that season too. So I think if we see Zion actually able to play a full season with full minutes, he could be like a top three player, top five
That
player.
Pelicans
Whereas
team
people are
is
putting him like
scary,
top
dog.
five, top 10.
That
They're
Pelican
scary.
team is scary. I'm very excited to see what they can do this season. They have a healthy Brandon
And
Ingram,
Zion's the scariest part of that all, bro.
Zion, CJ. You got a great bench depth. I'm very excited to see how they do this season.
All right. What about Ja
Properly rated. Properly rated, I think. Top
to
10
me?
point guard in today's league. Took a huge step this season. He was able to lead his team. I think he's properly rated, in my opinion.
He's a little overrated to me. I think people are like, he's just such an exciting player that people are overlooking his flaws. That's to me, he's a little overrated. All right, Chris Paul.
Um, this is tough. This one is tough. I say properly rated. I say properly rated. A playoff
I
choker?
think he's a
Yes.
little. I think he's a little underrated. Yes, he's a playoff choker, but I think people are like just completely shitting on him now. And I think he's really like people are like throwing him so far down. And really, what held him back this year was just like injuries and stuff.
Hmm.
I think he's a very underrated. Like people underrate his impact on that Suns team because they really can't do anything without him. So he's a little
For sure.
underrated to me. But as he gets older, it's like it's getting tougher to see him do well. Okay,
Hmm.
Draymond Green.
Properly rated.
I think at this point in his
Properly
career,
rated.
he's properly rated. He does a lot for that Warriors team. I think he's
Hmm.
overrating himself a bit by trying to say, "Hey, I deserve that max contract." Like, yes, you're great and you're essential to this Warriors team, but you're getting older, and there's other guys that need to get paid. I think he needs to take a step back if he wants this Warriors team to like continue to do well. Okay, now we're gonna do some all-time ones. Stockton.
Properly rated. A great
To me,
passer. That's
mm,
just all
to
I
me,
have.
he's overrated. He's the assist
Mm.
leader, but like a lot of that, I've been saying this, is he's just abusing that illegal defense system. But
Hmm.
basically, all
For
he
sure.
does is just most of his shots, he just passes it to Malone in the post, and Malone can't get doubled, and so he just scores easily. So I think John Stockton is a little overrated. I think people have 5 point guard. I think debatably he's outside the top 5 if you really just look at his game. He was a menace on defense, but also that like so much of his game was sort of exploiting the illegal defense. That's how I see it. I don't know, maybe that's a hot take, but I've been thinking recently that John Stockton's a bit overrated. Just because he has that assist record and that steals record doesn't mean he's really all that. Okay, what about Wilt?
I want you to. You go on this one. I'm
Okay.
on the fence here.
Wilt to me is a little bit overrated. People look at his stats, that's all they look at, and they think of him as this incredible player. He was an incredible player. He was an incredible player. But people look at the stats and that's all they base like their rating of him off. If his stats were that good, he never won a championship until he was carried by Jerry. You see what I'm saying? How come a guy like Bill Russell, who didn't put up quite the same numbers, was able to get 11? This is why, because Bill Russell made his teammates better. This is kind of the same thing with Chris Paul. Bill Russell was smarter, a better defender, and he made his teammates better. So even though he wasn't putting up those like 100 points, 55 rebound type games, he was didn't care about that because he was making his team win. See, Wilt's stat padding hurt his team, and that's why he never won until he was older and he had someone like Elgin Baylor and Jerry West on his team. What do you think?
Based on what you said, I'll go overrated. I think his stats is what boosts him up, but watching it, yeah, I agree. I agree.
All right. So that's all for overrated and underrated that I have. So then the last thing I want to talk about, I mean, to sort of conclude this is who do you think is the next face of the NBA next 10 years?
I want to say, I want to say, Luca could be the face, but it's Giannis. Come on. I've said this before off the podcast in person with Sam. I feel like NBA media is xenophobic a little bit. Not a little bit. NBA media is xenophobic at times. You can go back, watch any news reporter, anybody you want, but the NBA media is xenophobic. It's with Jokic, it's with Joel, it's with Giannis, it's with Luca. When Luca was first getting drafted in 2018 and they were looking over his stats and like his play, people were being xenophobic against Luca, Stephen A. Smith, and other people. When Jokic, Embiid, and Giannis were all in the MVP race, they overlooked them so many times for these other players. Go back to the 2021-22 season when it first started, or the 2020 and 2021 season, and the beginning of the 21-22 season when they were talking about who are the MVPs in this league. They left out Joel Embiid, they left out Jokic, and some reporters even left out Giannis, right? And these three players were having
For the top three
amazing
candidates
time of their
easily.
careers. Yes.
Yeah.
So I feel like NBA media is xenophobic, but who can be the face of the league? I say Giannis. At what he's doing at the age of 27, right? Not many of our greats have not done that much at the age of 27. He's just now entering his prime. He's improving his shot. He's improving his game. I think Giannis could be the face of the league, but I will not be mad if you say Luca can be the face of the league in the next 5 years. It'll become time when Luca wins his first MVP. So either Luca or Giannis could be the face of the league. And I'm not mad if you say Embiid or Jokic. They're just a step down. But Luca and Giannis are my two players that I pick who will be the face of the league.
I think Giannis definitely just because I think I see him having more success in terms of winning championships. I think championship, and I think at the age of 27, he could reasonably be the most dominant player in his 5 years. But after that, I could see him declining a bit as he gets older. Just it becomes harder for super physical players to keep that type of stuff up as they get like into their 30s and stuff. But I definitely want to say Luca. But then someone who's a bit of a sleeper pick, who I think is an actually a great star and is in a better situation for winning right now than Luca, would be Zion Williamson if he's able to be healthy. I think he hasn't proven as much as Luca or Giannis has, but he definitely has so much potential, and he has sort of the exciting play style to really make himself the face of the league. So I think either of those three picks are valid. But for me, I'm gonna go next 5 years Giannis, 5 years after that Luca.
Yeah, that's what I think too. There's so many good players in the league today, and it's hard to choose who's in your top 10, who's in your top 5 at this position, who's in your top 5 that position. It's so hard because there's so much talent in this league today. But I think Giannis and Luca can be the face of the league in the next 10 years. And I agree with somebody physical like Giannis, they could decline in the early 30s. But, I think Luca, it's about time that Luca wins his first MVP. So I can see both of them being number 1 in the league.
All right.
All right. Well, that was today's episode. A great episode. A lot of interesting topics that we talked about. Go subscribe to our YouTube. Thank you for showing the love and support in these last few days. We're in new backgrounds, we're in new environments, and we're just growing, steady growth. So thank you so much. Follow the TikTok. Sam runs the TikTok. So give us more ideas in the comments, and we'll see you in the next episode. Sam, anything else?
All right. Peace out, guys. Everything Shrieker said. Thank you, guys. Peace.